Greetings children. Welcome to part 2 of question and answers of the making of a global world. Let's start. Other important questions, as per CCE pattern, B multiple choice questions, 1 mark, Q.1. Globalization today mainly refers to A. Trade, migration of people in search of work, B. Movement of capital, C. An economic system that has emerged in the last 50 years, D. Cultural links among world societies ans. C. Q.2. Who were the first people to link the world in ancient times and why? A. Priests and pilgrims traveled vast distances for knowledge and spiritual fulfillment. B. Travelers, traders, priests and pilgrims traveled vast distances for knowledge, opportunity, spiritual fulfillment or to escape persecution. C. Traders. D. All the above ans. B. Q.3. The main reason why the world shrank in the 1500s is A. Emergence of Europe as the center of world trade. B. China's retreat into isolation and its reduced role in politics. C. Slaves working in plantations, growing sugar and cotton for European markets. D. European sailors found a sea route to Asia, and also crossed the Atlantic and discovered America. ans. D.
Q4. Which of the following statements is a true definition of what the economists identify as those: a trade in goods, cloth or wheat, migration of people in search of employment, and movement of capital for short-term or long-term investments over long distances? B. Economic, social, cultural and technological exchanges. C. Self-sufficiency in food and no imports of food. D. All the above. And at A. Q5. The two evidences we have of India carrying on an active coastal trade in ancient times. The Indians carried goods, money, skills and ideas abroad. B. An active coastal trade as early as 3000 BC, linked Indus Valley civilization with present-day West Asia. C. Both. And B. D. For more than a millennium, cowries, a form of Indian currency, found its way from Maldives to China and East Africa. And C.
Q.6. The most powerful weapon, which the Spanish conquerors of America had, was A. Superiority in conventional weapons. B. Germs, such as those of smallpox, proved a deadly killer and paved the way for conquest. C. America's original inhabitants have no immunity against diseases that came from Europe. D. Both. B. And C. And D. Q.7. Beside clearing land, what else was needed to increase food production in the world in the 19th century? A. Railways to link agricultural regions, harbors to be expanded or built for new cargoes. B. Building homes and settlements for those working on land. C. Capital and labor. D. All the above and D. Q.8. The number of people who migrated from Europe to America and Australia and other parts of the world in the 19th century was nearly A. 10 million from Europe and 100 million from all over the world. B. 20 million from Europe and about 150 million from all over the world. C. 50 million people from Europe to America and Australia and 150 million from all over the world migrate. D. The number is not certain, not enough proof and C. Q.9. The dramatic changes in global agricultural economy by 1890 were A. Food no longer came from a nearby village but from thousands of miles away, grown by a migrant recently arrived. B. Food was transported by railways recently built and ships manned by low-paid workers from southern Europe, Asia, Africa. C. Forests were converted into large farms, leading to ecological changes. D. All the above and D. Q.10. Indentured labor means A. Labor, which is marked by identification marks on their bodies. B. A bonded laborer, under contract to work for a specific time for his employer, to pay off his passage to a new country or home. C. A slave brought in a share market. D. All the above and B. Q.11. The example of indentured labor's migration from India illustrates A. The two-sided nature of the 19th century world. B. A world of faster economic growth as well as great misery, higher income for some and poverty for others. C. Technological advances in some areas, new forms of coercion in others. D. All the above and D. Q.12. In the 19th century, hundreds of thousands of Indian and Chinese laborers went to work on A. Farms all around the world. B. In factories, in Africa. C. In mines, plantations, road and railway construction projects around the world. D. In the diamond and gold mines of South America and C. Q.13. Indian nationalist leaders began opposing the system of indentured labor migration from the 1900s because A. They considered it abusive, cruel and a new form of slavery. B. Indian indentured workers were considered coolies in the Caribbean. C. The minority migrants were given few legal rights, and their living and working conditions were harsh. D. All the above. And A. Q.14. Name one Nobel Prize-winning writer who was a descendant of indentured labor migrants. A. Shivnarine Chandapal. B. Ramnaresh Sawan. C. V.S. Naipaul. D. Ramnarine Jewarians. C. Q.15. Indentured labor system was abolished in India in A. 1900. B. 1920. C. 1921. D. 1922 and C. Q.16. The reasons why the inflow of fine Indian cotton into Britain and other countries declined in the 19th century were A. Industrialization and expansion of cotton manufacture in Britain. B. Imposition of tariff on cloth imported into Britain to protect local industries. C. British manufacturers began to seek overseas markets for their cloth. Indians faced stiff competition in international markets. D. All the above and D. Q.17. Which Indian town is shown in the picture and why? A. Mumbai. It was a big industrial city in India. B. Kolkata. A distant view with the river in background. C. A distant view of Surat and its river. In the 17th and early 18th centuries, it was the center of overseas trade in Western Indian Ocean. D. Goa. A seaport, which traded with other countries and C.
Q.18. The British trade surplus with India in the 19th century helped Britain, A. to balance its trade deficits with other countries, B. it helped to pay home charges that included private remittances by British officials and traders, C. Britain could pay interest payments on India's external debts and pensions of British officials in India, D. all the above and D. Q.19. The foods introduced in Europe after Christopher Columbus accidentally discovered the vast continent, later known as America, were A. spaghetti and noodles, B. potatoes, soya, groundnuts, maize, tomatoes, chilies and sweet potatoes, C. pasta and potatoes, D. all the above and B. Q.20. The Europeans brought to Africa a devastating disease which destroyed A. rinderpest, a disease carried by infected cattle, imported from British Asia to feed Italian soldiers. B. 90% of cattle in Africa by 1897. C. Both A. and B. D. None of the above and C. Q.21. The Second World War was fought between A. America and Europe, B. USA and England and Germany and Japan, C. the Allies, Britain, France, Soviet Union and the US, and the Axis powers, Nazi Germany, Japan and Italy, D. the USA, England and France and Germany and Italy and C. Q.22. From whom could a humble Indian peasant borrow capital for growing food and other crops for the world market? A. From Indian bankers like Shikarapuri Shroffs and Natakotai. B. From traders and moneylenders like Hyderabadi Sindhis, who followed European colonizers into Africa. C. Both A. and B. D. all the above and C. Q.23. Which of the following statements support the view that the Second World War was unlike other wars? A. More civilians than soldiers died from war-related causes. B. Vast parts of Europe and Asia were devastated. Several cities were destroyed by aerial bombardments and artillery attacks. C. Most of the deaths took place outside the battlefields. D. all the above and D. Q.24. Post-war reconstruction was shaped by two crucial influences. They were: A. The U.S. emerged as the dominant economic, political and military power in the Western world. B. The capitalist world collapsed. C. The Soviet Union emerged as a world power. D. Both. A. And C. Ands. D. Q.25. The dramatic change in global agricultural economy occurred in West Punjab, India. The similarity was: A. Building of irrigation canals to transform semi-deserts into fertile agricultural lands for growing wheat and cotton for export. B. Peasants from other parts of Punjab were settled in these canal colonies. C. Both. A. And B. D. Importing labor from southern India. Ands. C. Q.26. Trade in meat is chosen as an example of the role of technology in global agricultural economy because: A. Technology promoted better living conditions at home and support for imperialism abroad. B. Frozen meat transported to Europe reduced the cost of shipping meat and made it affordable for the poor. C. Both. A. And B. D. Live animals were shipped from America to Europe, then slaughtered on arrival. This led to meat being unfit to be eaten. Ands. C. Q.27. The decision-making in the IMF and the World Bank is controlled by: A. All the member nations of these two banks. B. Western industrial powers and the U.S.'s right to veto over key IMF and World Bank decisions. C. The Asian-African bloc. D. A majority vote by all the nations. Ands. B. Q.28. Which of the following statements is true about the international monetary system? A. A system which links national currencies and monetary system. B. A system based on fixed exchange rates. For example, Indian rupee was pegged to the dollar at a fixed rate. C. The dollar was anchored to gold at a fixed price of $35 per ounce of gold. D. All the above. Ands. D. Q.29. The European colonies in Asia and Africa after independence faced the problems of: A. Overpopulation and illiteracy. B. Burden of overwhelming poverty and a lack of resources. C. The economic and social handicaps of long periods of colonial rule. D. Dependence on the colonial powers for economic growth. Ands. B. Q.30. The IMF and the World Bank shifted their attention in the late 1950s towards the developing countries, because: A. They wanted to dominate the economy of the developing nations. B. Europe and Japan had rapidly rebuilt their economies and did not need the help of IMF and World Bank. C. The developing countries needed their help to fight poverty and lack of resources. D. Both. B. And C. Ands. D. Q.31. The Group of 77 or G77 was: A. A group formed by Western nations to exploit the developing nations. B. A group formed by the developing countries to demand a new international economic order. C. A protest against the Western economic policies. D. All the above. Ands. B. Q.32. Through the NEO, the developing countries demanded: A. A system that would give them real control over their natural resources. B. More development assistance and fairer prices for raw materials. C. Better access for their manufactured goods in developed countries' markets. D. All the above. Ands. D. Q.33. MNCs are: A. Foreign companies that flourish in the developing countries. B. Multinational corporations, or large companies, that operate in several countries at the same time. C. Large companies that try to exploit small companies. D. West European and Japanese companies which exploit the developing countries. Ands. B. Q.34. The worldwide spread of the MNCs in the 1950s and 1960s was partly due to: A. U.S. businesses expanded in these years. B. Western Europe and Japan became powerful industrial economies. C. High import tariffs imposed by different governments forced the MNCs to locate their manufacturing operations and become domestic operators in many countries. D. All the above. Q.35. Which of the following statements are reasons for the collapse of the system of fixed exchange rate in the 1960s? A. The rising costs of its overseas involvements weakened the U.S. finances and competitive strength. B. The US dollar no longer commanded confidence as the world's principal currency. C. The US dollar could not maintain its value in relation to gold. D. All the above ands. D. Q.36. Tariff means A. Any kind of tax on any product. B. Tax imposed on a country's imports levied at the point of entry, i.e., border or airport. C. A tax imposed on income. D. A tax imposed on exports sans. B. Q.37. The Second World War was a war fought for underscore A. 8 years, from 1930 to 1938. B. 6 years, from 1939 to 1945. C. 5 years, from 1939 to 1944. D. 10 years, from 1939 to 1949. Ans. B. Q.38. Why did MNCs begin to shift production operations to low-wage Asian countries in the late 1970s? A. The industrial world was hit by unemployment from the mid-1970s to the early 1990s. B. Low wages in countries like China reduced the cost of investments and made it easy for the MNCs to capture world markets. C. Both. A. And B. D. New economic policies in China and collapse of the Soviet Union. Ans. C. Q.39. Bretton Woods is associated with A. A post-war international system to preserve economic stability. B. A United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, held in July 1944, in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. C. A peace settlement after the Second World War. D. Both. A. And B. Ans. D. Q.40. The Bretton Woods twins are A. The USA and Soviet Russia. B. The two international banks, the IMF and the World Bank, set up to finance post-war reconstruction. C. The framework agreed upon by the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. D. All the above. Ans. B. Q.38. Why did MNCs begin to shift production operations to low-wage Asian countries in the late 1970s? A. The industrial world was hit by unemployment from the mid-1970s to the early 1990s. B. Low wages in countries like China reduced the cost of investments and made it easy for the MNCs to capture world markets. C. Both. A. And B. D. New economic policies in China and collapse of the Soviet Union. Ans. C. Q.39. Bretton Woods is associated with A. A post-war international system to preserve economic stability. B. A United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference, held in July 1944, in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. C. A peace settlement after the Second World War. D. Both. A. And B. Ans. D. Q.40. The Bretton Woods twins are A. The USA and Soviet Russia. B. The two international banks, the IMF and the World Bank, set up to finance post-war reconstruction. C. The framework agreed upon by the United Nations Monetary and Financial Conference. D. All the above. Ans. B. Q.45. Who adopted the concept of an assembly line to produce automobiles? 2010, 2011, T1, A. T. Coppola, B. V. S. Naipaul, C. Henry Ford, D. Ramesh Ans. C. Q.46. Which among the following countries were considered as Axis powers during Second World War? 2010, T1, A. Nazi Germany, Japan, Italy, B. Britain, Germany, Russia, C. France, Germany, Italy, D. Britain, France, Russia and the US. Ans. A. Q.47. Which one of the following did not travel along the Silk routes in the pre-modern world? 2010, T1, A. Christian missionaries, B. Traders, C. Tourists, D. Muslim preachers. Ans. C. Q.48. Which one of the following is a Nobel Prize-winning writer who is a descendant of indentured labor from India? 2010, T1, A. Salman Rushdie, B. V. S. Naipaul, C. Arundhati Roy, D. Bob Marley. Ans. B. Q.49. Which of the following West Indies cricketers trace their roots to indentured labour migrants from India? 2010, T1, A. Vivian Richards and Gary Sobers, B. Chris Gale and Dwayne Bravo, C. Ranesh Sawan and Shivnarain Chanderpaul, D. Brian Lara and Courtney Walshans, C.